Hey there, drone fans. Rick here again from Drone Valley. Well, today is July 4th, and in the U.S. we celebrate today as Independence Day, and I hope everybody out there is spending plenty of time with family and friends, maybe cooking up a hot dog or a hamburger or a nice ear of corn, and really relaxing over this long 4th of July weekend and flying your drones because the weather's been gorgeous. But I was out on my deck this morning, as I do often, drinking a cup of coffee. I like to come out in the morning and walk on the deck and just look at nature and relax and sort of think about the day, think about technology, think about our hobby. And of course, my thoughts lately have been drifting off to this ridiculous DJI Drone Ban that's gaining momentum in the US. Now, I haven't talked about it a lot on the channel, but I can tell you over the last couple of months, I've gotten so many questions through email and phone calls and text messages asking what this ban's about, where did it come from, how's it going to affect my ability to fly, and what can we do to impact it? Because quite honestly, if the ban is enacted the way it's been written, we cannot buy DJI drones once that ban becomes live. And I'll get into what that's all about in a minute. But the more I thought about it, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of things that need to be talked about. And honestly, I've done the research. I've actually talked to the people that are in charge of it. I've worked behind the scenes as well, talking with certain politicians and certain industry veterans about what we can do to impact it. So I've been quietly working on things behind the scenes to see if I can add pressure or maybe add my opinion to something, because to me, this makes no sense whatsoever. And again, I did a clip a couple of years ago that I think I titled, "Is DJI spying on the US through DJI drones?" And I was standing like this, like, are you kidding me? Because I'm here to tell you, as an engineer of over 50 years, it is not technically possible. There is absolutely no useful information being gathered by consumer or commercial drones through the DJI ecosystem that would benefit the Chinese Communist Party. I can tell you with absolute certainty, it's nonsense. What this is about at its very core, dirty politics, profit, and protectionism. That's it. Those three things are driving this. And I'll spend a lot of time talking about that in another clip, because I'd like to break this into maybe 4 or 5 different clips that attack each of those different segments. Where did it start? Who's behind it, more importantly, and all the politics involved with that? What does it mean? And what are the chances of it passing? And then more importantly, the technology, the nerdy stuff behind how this isn't feasible. It isn't really possible. Even on paper, it's not possible for this to be doing what they're saying it's doing. And it's all under the guise of protecting us from the Chinese, because they're somehow surveilling the country through these consumer level drones, and that's going to impact our safety. Again, my head's exploding on this because it's just a preposterous claim. Just for starters, are they the only company that are building drones in China? No, they're not. Autel does them there. There are parts of Skydio that are built there. A bunch of other drone companies, whether it be Parrot, they've got components that are built there. I went on Amazon the other day, just did a quick search. I found 68 companies, 68 different companies that are selling drones on Amazon that are all made in China. So why DJI? Well, interestingly, DJI's got between 65 and 80% of the consumer market. Gee, that's interesting. So let's go after them. But nobody else. Like, somehow they're different. They're only different because they're winning that space. But I'm getting to another subject that I shouldn't be talking about. Today I'm answering the question about what happens if this horrible legislation ends up in law and it's signed by the president. And I'll get to that in a second, and I'm not delaying it on purpose. I just want to lay the groundwork for how we got here just briefly. All right, so Elise Stefanik was the person that actually instigated this. Now, you'd think they'd be technically responsible, that she'd be a wizard in technology, she'd understand this, the dangers out there about what this is doing. But no, that's not the case. They just decided China's bad, these drones are made in China, so these drones must be bad, and they're bad for the US. Now on the surface, I guess that political argument resonates with people, right? Because we're supposed to be afraid of the bad guys. It's China, it's Russia, it's North Korea. You know all the names that we always pick on every day in the news and everywhere else. But the fact that it's made in China doesn't make it a bad company, right? How many digital products do we have that are made in China? I mean, let's be realistic. Everybody out there's got a cell phone. Where do you think that cell phone is built? Everybody out there's got a computer. Where do you think that computer was put together? Your TV, your cameras at home that you're using for security, your smart speakers, all of that stuff is built in China. So is a drone really different than all that other stuff? I mean, the cameras that are in your house are IP-based technology that's connected directly to the internet. So if they're going to surveil anything, they're going to surveil through that. So the law, or I should say the legislation at its core is flawed right from the gate. So okay, Be that as it may, politics is such that you can basically put a bill together that says anything, and you get enough people to agree to it, it moves through committee, and then it moves to a vote. Well, here's the dangerous part. It already moved through vote at the House. The House has already voted on it and moved it along to the Senate. So I didn't pay attention to it as much because I felt like they're going to shoot it down. There's a lot of common sense going on over there in the House of Representatives. Somebody's going to go, wait a minute, Elise, this doesn't make any sense from a technical perspective. What are we talking about? Give me some evidence, just a shred of evidence that the Chinese have ever collected any bit of information through a drone that's been detrimental to the security of the United States. Nobody's got it. And there's all these people talking about, well, they probably know stuff we don't know. We understand the technology. We understand there's a camera. It can fly. It's GPS coordinated. It doesn't have a connection directly to the internet. All it's got is a Wi-Fi connection to your controller. So you as a person would have to upload those files to the internet somewhere in China for them to be able to use that and have useful information there. It's nonsense. I'm here to say it again, absolute nonsense. So, all right, the bill's moving through the House. Now it's moved on to the Senate. Now what happens? Well, the Senate put a committee together because they don't trust what the House did. They're like, well, you put a bunch of pork in there. We're going to adjust it over here till we're happy about it. Then we're going to send it back to you so you guys can look at it. Then we're going to get together and talk about it. And then eventually, if we all agree on it, we're going to vote on it. If you approve it and we approve it, it goes to the president. President signs it. Then it's a law. We're quite a ways away from that. And I'm going to get into a little bit of what you can do to impact this today. So, all right, the resolution is House Resolution 2864. And again, Elise Stefanik is the one who sponsored it. She's the driving force behind it. And when I talk about politics, wait till you hear the clip that I'm going to do on that, because it turns out a staffer from her campaign was involved with the DOD, is now on the Skydio board. There's all kinds of shenanigans going on here in the background, and I understand that lobbying is the way that things are done, but it's dirty politics. And for consumers like me that own a drone, that just want to fly it in the backyard and fly it over the lake and fly it over the woods or down at the shore, I'm not causing any issues, so why would you deny me that freedom? It's Independence Day after all. All right, so that's the HR 2864. So that kind of legislation had been talked about an awful lot, and it basically went nowhere. So this HR 2864 got approved, and it got buried in a larger bill, which I think is really important. It's called the National Defense Authorization Act, and that's funding the military. So that bill is absolutely going to pass. But they sort of attached that to the bill. So the bill moved through the Congress, or through the House of Representatives, now to the Senate. And the problem is this little part, the HR 2864, is kind of dangling off the back of it. And if that bill gets passed, that bad part of it, the part I care about, is going to draft in with that bill. So it's important in the Senate that somebody notices, wait a minute, you've got this kind of scary legislation dangling off the back here that has no technical foundation. It's a purely political pork move. Let's take that out of the bill. So the Senate can pull that out. Then they send it back to the House. They can add it back in if they choose to. But here's the dangerous part. A lot of times, those additional regulations like this one, House Regulation 2864, don't go in there or don't stay in there because they cost money. So it raises the cost of whatever they're passing. In this case, the NDAA Act. This isn't going to raise the price because there's no cost associated with it. So the danger is, if there had a price, if it was a couple $1 million additional, they may yank it out to save that money. But the fact that it's not going to add any cost to the bill means it's probably going to stay in there, and it might just sneak through. And then one day we wake up, the bill's been approved, the president signed it, and DJI can't sell drones in the US anymore. Now here's, again, the complicated part. You can't ban DJI drones out individually. I imagine you could. There's probably some legislation you could pass to pick on them specifically, but you'd have to find a lot of bad stuff there. Now, recently, just yesterday or day before, Autel's been added to what we're calling the entity list, which is the first step to having them banned as well. So I don't know whether somebody said, you know what, this looks like dirty politics because we're only picking on DJI. We better add somebody else. Who's the next biggest one? Autel, add them to the list. Again, nonsense. So anyway, right now, it's part of the NDAA, right, which is the National Defense Authorization Act. That's going to pass, and I think that should pass because that supports our military, and I'm a fan of the military. Go military, thank you guys for serving. We so appreciate your service. You deserve a raise, you deserve better protections, better machinery, all the things that are in that bill. So I'm a fan of that bill. That's going to pass. It's going to pass with flying colors once they do their adjustments to the pricing and all the rest of it. But if we don't take action on this HR 2864, which is tucked in there nice and tight, is going to pass along with it. So the Senate has to yank that out. Now, in New Jersey, we have two senators. Robert Mendez, who's in a whole lot of trouble right now with legal issues, and Cory Booker, who I'm a huge fan of. Cory Booker has been one of my heroes ever since he ran for political office. I can't get either of their attention. So let me say right now, if anybody out there sees this clip and you know Robert Mendez's staff or you know Cory Booker's staff, get me a meeting. Give me 30 minutes with them. to explain the fundamentals. I promise I'll slow down. There's a ton of facts here and a whole lot of fiction that's driving this through. But I need somebody, we need a champion to stand up in the Senate, get involved in those negotiations, conversation, and talk to his fellow senators and say, this is nonsense. This is going to hurt hobbyists, commercial enterprises, and other people that are flying these drones. But anyway, it's in the Senate right now, so we have to stop it before it goes any further. So the first thing I need you guys to do is figure out who your representatives are in the state. We have 12 in New Jersey, and we have 2 senators in New Jersey. Get their names. And what I'm going to do is put together a form letter. You can send them via email, or better yet, print it out, put it in an envelope, stick a stamp on it, and send it to their office and complain about this, because what they're going to react to, they're probably not even aware of this. They're going to react to people, their constituents in their state, saying, hey, this is a dumb idea. What are you doing? Hey, you represent us. Make sure this is defeated. So if we get thousands of those sent in, that's going to really impact this bill. But we need to handle that. But again, back to the question that I started this whole conversation with, what happens if this thing gets into a law? Well, for starters, again, this is kind of a snarky thing they're doing, or a sneaky thing they're doing. It doesn't ban the drone outright. What it does instead is it directs the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission, to stop granting approvals to DJI to use our airwaves. What? You couldn't find a more esoteric way to sort of wrangle this in there? But anyway, that's what's going to happen. So essentially, if this bill passes, the FCC, anytime they get an approval from DJI for a new product, a drone, a camera, I don't know, whatever else they're building, whatever technology they've got that uses that Wi-Fi frequency, the FCC is not allowed to approve them. Now think about that. The way I read it, right now, any drone that's been approved by the FCC is valid, legal, it's ready to fly. But the minute that becomes law, from then on, they're not going to approve any more FCC applications from DJI, which means any new drone past that point can't be sold in the US. But it means any drone up to that point can still be flown in the US. So your drone's not going to get bricked, it's not going to be immediately grounded. For that to happen, the FCC would have to look back on all the approvals it gave prior, and I'm sure it would take some legislation to do that, and rescind all those, and then that would force those drones to be landed. They can't be flown anymore because they can't use that 2.4 gigahertz or 5.8 gigahertz frequency where the drone communicates with the controller. That's the only connection point there is, and that's what Wi-Fi is used for. Now again, I have to point this out. That same frequency band, 2.4 gig and 5.8 gig, is used by millions and millions of products in the US. Your phone, your computer, your security cameras, your smart speakers, your smartwatches, which again can all geolocate you. The cameras in the phones are as good as the ones in the drones, and they're terrestrial. So if I were China and I was trying to spy in the US and I've got 1 million phones on the ground, I'm sending people to those locations with the phones that have a direct connection to the internet so I can get those photos and images as quickly as possible. Or better yet, why don't I float a balloon over the US? Or why don't I send a spy satellite over top of the US and get that information? Why don't I go to Google Earth? I get most of what I need from there anyway. So there's a lot of reasons this is nonsense. But the bottom line, and I know I'm rambling here because I'm real excited about it, the bottom line is if the law passes, I think the worst thing that's going to happen is that all the older drones will be fine. Anything past that point might be an issue for DJI. Now, they're an incredibly innovative company. They may already have something figured out where they don't need to use that. I don't know what they do. It would be some Martian technology that doesn't need Wi-Fi. But again, I have to stand tall with this company because I'm not defending DJI, I'm defending the hobby. I want to fly a drone. And honestly, DJI was sort of the innovator for all the major innovations that have taken place in the hobby drone space and in the commercial drone space over the last 10 years. The first ones that gave us extended range, protections built in for low battery, return to home automated, crash avoidance, geofencing, which a lot of people didn't like, but geofencing is another point. Geofencing is the exact technology that would keep anybody trying to spy on the important infrastructure in the US out of those zones because they can't fly there. It's the only drone on the market that's using geofencing, so they should be the ones that everybody should be championing as a safe drone. But anyway, I'm getting aside for myself. So that's it for today. I just wanted to talk about it a little bit, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm very excited about it, and I got a lot of thoughts in my head I want to get out. But for today, the answer is if you're flying a drone today, you're going to be fine. Even if the law passes, you're going to be fine. If the law passes, I don't know what's going to happen beyond that, and there's a slight chance that it may look back over the other approvals and try to rescind those, and that would be a problem for us. But the bottom line right now is we have some time before the Senate puts a final version of this bill together and votes on it, you have to get a hold of your representatives and your senators and start yelling at them about, look, this means a lot to me, because I can guarantee you there are rescue teams, there are firemen, there are ship captains that are sending drones, finding people that are lost in the ocean. There's a kid lost in the woods. There's a fire over here. Should the firemen go through that window? Let's put a thermal drone up and look through the smoke to see if somebody's actually in the building. So there's a lot of like rescue people that use these drones every day. And if they ban DJI, their only alternative is to buy one of the other drones, which quite honestly are not as feature rich and are 5 or 10 times more expensive. And they already own the DJI drone. So by providing this legislation, what Elise Stefanik is doing with this is essentially neutering all of those federal agents that today are saving lives with drones all over the country, and they're making them less effective. And that just doesn't stand for me. As an American on this Independence Day, I am really upset about this. So I hope you guys are getting fired up. Trust me when I tell you, I'll have more clips talking about each of these different sections that I mentioned a minute ago, and I'll put it all up on the podcast as well. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, I've got links below. But that's it for today. Again, everybody calm down, have a beer or a glass of wine, relax over the long weekend, and just have a lot of fun flying your drone. But this is something we got to pay attention to. So come Monday, we'll be back at it again. And that's all I really had. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope you guys are having a nice, relaxing 4th of July. And until next time, as always, happy flying.